Hey, welcome back to 25 Days to Slay in May. If you are struggling with self-destructive behavior or self-sabotage and you're looking to up level in the month of May, this video is for you. Hey, I'm Angela, trauma healer and self-sabotage slayer. I help solid coaches, healers, and trauma coaches slay self-sabotage so they can embody freedom, live on their terms, and do business their way. And today we are talking about how to come into acceptance of yourself and stop hiding parts of you. I feel like this is an important topic because when we hide certain parts from ourselves and from the people that we love and even from our audience, it potentially creates self-sabotage. I know that in my personal life, because I felt there were certain things that my audience wouldn't accept about me, it actually created sabotage because I wanted to be able to share those things, but I also felt like I was going to be judged. So when I was doing the things that I felt like my audience wouldn't accept about me, I felt shame for it, and then I felt like I couldn't share about it, and then I would like spiral into this shitstorm, right, of shame and feeling judgment and guilt because I'm doing these things and I feel like my audience won't accept it, but I like to be open and share with my audience. So ultimately, that also, I sabotaged the whole business, but ultimately that really did play a part in how I showed up and whether or not I shared certain things with my audience. Now, before I get into this, I want you to know it is 100% up to you what you decide to share and keep in private. And you're absolutely allowed to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't want you to think that I'm here telling you like share everything with your audience. No, absolutely not. What I am telling you though is that if you're hiding things from your audience because you haven't fully accepted those parts of you, that is going to lead to sabotage, and you do want to come into full acceptance of those things, especially if it's things that you like to do. Like I used to hide that I like EDM music and that I like to drink wine and smoke a cigar every once in a while, and I hid that I was in a very unhealthy relationship from my audience. So I want you to know, like, the other two things, like, it shouldn't have been that big of a deal, but it totally was for me, and it's because I wasn't in full acceptance that that's what I like to do, right? Because there's all this misconception about, well, that's not spiritual and that's poison and all of those things, and it took a while for me to realize that it had nothing to do with my audience and it had everything to do with me. Now, the unhealthy relationship part, that's for like a different day, but again, it's almost the same concept, right? So what I want you to do is in order for you to even come into acceptance of parts of you that you're hiding, that you would like to share with your audience, but you feel like you're going to be judged, you've got to come into awareness of what that is. You have to be aware of what those things are. I know like a lot, especially like in the spiritual community and in the healing community, there is a lot of women that have done sex work. And so there's a lot of shame and misconception and judgment that comes along with that. And people are afraid to share that about them. Now, please, 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 I want you to make sure that if you do decide to share that, it's in a very trusting space where you feel safe in that container. Like my Facebook group, if you want to share that, I would love to hear your story and share that. The group is very safe. The link for it is down below. So you want to decide what are the things that you're hiding from your audience. I know a lot of women that have struggled from sexual trauma that have also had a very promiscuous past, and they're afraid to share it because they're afraid of the shame and the judgment. I know that was my experience. And so and even if we do live in a society where that's like more the norm and it's more accepting, what you start to realize when you heal is that acting that way is actually wounded energy. And so because you start to learn that, then there's all this shame that we're putting onto it that we haven't fully accepted. So I spent a lot of time learning how to accept that part of me and who she was and what she was doing to survive at that point in time. But you have to come into awareness of these things. If you are not awareness of what you haven't fully accepted, it's going to bleed into your business and it's going to project into your relationships and onto your clients. So you've got to come into awareness what you haven't fully accepted about you. And then, of course, how do you come into acceptance of these parts of you? It is about healing, of course. I mean, like everything, right? It is also about feeling safe, everything else, but also the best way to come into acceptance is integration, is leaning into these parts that give you doubt, that are the inner critic, that judge you, that you feel like you're jealous, that you feel anger, that you feel grief, you feel sadness, you feel certain things. You want to start leaning into these things. When you start to lean into these things, you start to get messages that you're actually missing. And when you start to listen to these messages and hold space for yourself and create this compassionate energy for yourself, everything starts to shift. You start to shift in a more accepting, loving, and forgiving relationship with yourself because you're really getting to know yourself on a deep level and realizing the coping mechanisms that were created from your past and your trauma. And that how, even though you're a healer and a trauma coach and a soul-led coach, these things are still coming up. This is like at a deep level, this is ultimately shadow work. And again, this is something that I help my clients with one-to-one. There is a very specific way that we work on we work in shadow work, along with healing your chakras and doing timeline at the same time, that just creates these phenomenal results where my clients go from afraid to sharing their spiritual gifts to running a full-time business, sharing their spiritual gifts with the world, and going from not really sure about what it is that they want to do to fully stepping into their power and sharing their magic with the world. And it's a beautiful thing to see. And this is how they start to come into acceptance of themselves, is through holding space for themselves, through getting to know these parts of them that are screaming for their attention. I walk my clients through that one-to-one, and the results are they're just absolutely incredible. When you do this shadow work and you feel like you're coming more and more acceptance for yourself, remember, it's going to be a practice like everything else. There's still going to be parts of you that you haven't fully accepted. My biggest one for me that I still work on a daily basis, and I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this before, is my body. And a lot of that comes from my history with sexual trauma, struggling with weight because of the sexual trauma, just all of those things, right? And so my body is the hardest one that has been for me to come into acceptance, that I work on every single day. Literally, I work on it every single day. And after I was in my previous relationship, it really took a toll on me then. And then I had to rework on that. And that's why I felt like I kind of started from the beginning. So what you want to do from there is you want to then decide, okay, what are you going to then share for your audience? Are there certain things that you do feel safe sharing with, that you're like, yeah, this is who I am. I'm completely okay with sharing this. Why wouldn't I share this? This makes me human. This makes me connect more. You get to decide that. I'm not going to be able to tell you that, and no other coach is going to be able to tell you that either. You get to decide what this looks like for you. Now I'm way more open about being into wine and smoking cigars and listening to EDM music and doing those things. So and other people comment and share things with me all the time, like, oh yeah, I've been to that place, I've seen that guy in concert, I've done all these things, right? And it builds this connection because you are more open, because you are more accepting, because there's not that shame there. And by doing that, this allows you to be seen and heard. This allows you to get more visible. This allows you to feel safe being seen and heard, right? We'll leave that for another day. But this is how you come into acceptance of yourself so that you feel more comfortable and confident sharing these things with your audience. Again, it all has to do with this deeper level of work. And so that's what you want to do to be able to come into acceptance of yourself. I want to try to end this in about 11 minutes. So please make sure that you I don't know what the timing looks like for you guys, but whatever. I'm trying to keep these at 10 minutes and I've been going over lately. So make sure that you like and subscribe. If you are struggling with coming into acceptance of yourself, you're probably also struggling with doubt. So make sure that you check out that masterclass that's coming up. I will leave the description for you there, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.